Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Finance. So I'd like to call the meeting to order and look for a motion to accept the February 11th minutes. Moved by Don Ward, seconded by James Griffith. All in favor say aye. 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 Opposed, carried. Okay, real property, looks like Laura Chadwick. Good morning, you're up first.
Hey, Brian, thank you. Everyone should have received the monthly report of the corrected tax bills that we had to do this month. There was 3 of them. The first one, the assessor failed to put the veterans exemption on there. The second one was there was a mobile home that was assessed twice on the property. And the third one was the assessor failed to put an aged exemption on the property. So those have all been fixed. So the second thing I have is a resolution to correct the tax bills. And this particular property that's in your resolution packet, the resolution, this original bill amount is so high because that bill included the school re-levy. The assessor was notified at school time. There was an error. She failed to do the paperwork to do a corrected tax bill at that point, and then failed to bring it before the Board of Assessment Review, which is our normal procedure to correct it before the town and county bills come out. So that did not get done, and now there's a town and county bill out there that should not have been levied because this is actually a church, a religious property, so it shouldn't have any taxes on it. It should be wholly exempt with a nonprofit exemption. So that'll write off the town and county and the school re-levy for that particular property.
Very good, and they're all in the town of Salem. So we need a motion. This is resolution A to correct that because of the size of it. So do I have a motion? So moved. Moved by Dave O'Brien, seconded by Dana Hogan. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. We're good.
Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Brian,
Okay. Yes.
can we have the resolutions on the screen so that the public can see them?
Yeah, I think it was just because this one came, but they're on the website, I guess. Is that what we're saying? So that's why they're not on the screen. But I understand exactly.
I won't pretend I understand that.
Okay. Treasurer, monthly reports, and tell me you got good news on the bond rate today.
So hopefully the results will come in while the meeting is still in session. I'll be able to share that with you. They're due in at 10 o'clock, probably around 11:30 we'll have some results. So the good news is everything that I see out in the market right now is actually showing pretty favorable. So I have high hopes. I shared my number with you. We'll see how close we come. Honestly, based on this morning's market, we might do better than the number I gave you. So we'll see. I hope everybody got the email this morning with my finance packet. The first page is the sales tax. This first deposit in March was $106,000 over the same deposit last year. It puts us $82,000 down for the year to date. But remember that the deposit had the distressed hospitals $126,990 taken out of it. So if it wasn't for that intercept, we would actually be $44,608 over last year. So sales tax is holding strong, which is great news for us. We'll be talking a little bit later, but we were luckier than some of our neighboring counties in our sales tax in 2020. COVID didn't have the impact on us as it did some of our neighbors. So next piece of my packet is our cash balances. Things are finally looking strong. We got a little lower in December than I like to be, but now that the towns are turning over their monies because they've made themselves whole, we're back on track and things are looking decent at this point. The next 4 pages is your year-to-date budget to actual for 2020. Remember, I don't really start sharing the current year until after the first quarter because the numbers are so skewed, they don't really have any meaning. The good news is, as I look at it this morning, we had shared with you that Brian and I were both comfortable that we would use about $500,000 in fund balance, with the asterisk that the tax collections fell drastically behind in 2020, and that deferred revenue impact on fund balance was going to be substantial. So as we sit this morning, we're about $350,000 usage of fund balance. So that 500,000 is probably going to be pretty darn close to reality. Because really all we have left to post is the March audit. So some of the prior year expenses that are going through the March audit will push that 350 closer to the 500. We'll be pretty close to on the money with our projection. And the deferred tax revenue is actually going to come in at 2.3 million. So while our actual usage of fund balance is only going to be around 500,000, the books are going to take a $2.8 million hit. So I just want you to be aware when you get my financial report and you say, Jesus, Al, you told us 500,000 and it's 2.8. Well, 2.3 of that is a reflection of the decrease in collections. And we had a conversation about that last month and it still remains the same. As long as we can't enforce on those taxes, that's just not, that number's not going to move. Hopefully we're able to do something in 2021 so that it just becomes a timing thing where you take a $2.3 million hit in 2020 and that money is recovered one way or another in 2021. So it's going to look terrible when we close 2020. My hopes are that it'll bounce back when we close 2021. But that's really going to be contingent on being able to move forward with enforcement.
Okay, can we do that just a little more? It's my recollection that the governor plans on doing a reconciliation of the 20% down to 5%. So it'll be 15% of certain revenues, and we don't know which ones or to what magnitude. But that money would also go against that 2.8 million. Is that correct?
As long as I know before the books are closed.
Okay.
Yep.
So
But if
it's
not-
going to be so convoluted, we won't know where everything went until we break it all apart.
Right. If we do know in the first couple weeks of April, there'll still be time to get that measured. Some of the money is already being restored. Our OMH, our OASIS, and our OPWDD, our 3 mental health programs have already restored their monies. This morning, I got 15% of the veterans' money restored. So some of the restorations are starting to occur already.
Okay, and then, of course, chips will get rolled over, so we won't see actual money, but we'll have the ability to use that this year, so that helps. Is there any big areas that you know of where we're going to see a reconciliation of any size, or is that just all up in the air yet?
The chips is going to be the biggest impact on the county. They actually restored some of the social services programs early enough that they were able to be measured already. So I don't see any like large numbers other than our chips number really affecting us.
And that's going to be more of a rollover, I think. Is that correct?
It'll be funds that she'll be able to pave with this year. Yep.
Okay. Sue Clary?
Ally, I just wanted to let you know that the town of Salem yesterday received our 15% back from our CETC money, the dissolution money.
Yay.
Wow.
So that was nice.
And I
Not all of
truly-
it, but it's some of it.
And Supervisor Clary, you all did it the right way. You put that money in contingency, and so you were in a win-win situation. So that was a good move.
Yeah, but
Yep.
it's sweating bullets time is what it was. Thank you. Thanks for your help, always.
So the last thing I have for the board, and it's either going to be 5 minutes or an hour and 5 minutes. We'll see how it goes. I wanted to. Yep. Go ahead, Matt.
I want to go back to what you mentioned before you had a new topic.
Yes,
You were
sir.
talking about enforcement.
Yes.
We're 6 weeks away from May 1st, which was, there were no foreclosures prior to May 1st. If that's the case, are we ready to ramp up and start doing what we need to do starting May 1st?
I would be able to pick up where I left off. It would put us in a position to maybe do something August, September. But we would potentially have 2 years. And if we had an October auction this year, it would be 2 years worth of properties.
Would that be beneficial to do it all at once in 2 years and the schedule in October so we know it's in October?
I think that would be my recommendation, sir.
Okay, and so as long as we're on that track, that's great. That's all. Thank you.
And that's provided that he doesn't renew he doesn't extend the moratorium.
Right.
And I'm glad you added that in before he went on to the next one, because this might take a while.
That's what I was thinking.
Or it might not. So this conversation can go wherever the board wants it to go. I did share in my packet with you this morning what we know today about the stimulus money that's coming to the county. Now, I want to make sure that I say that again, what we know today, because it has changed about 15 times in the past 2 weeks of what we thought we knew. And there's a meeting with Schumer this evening about 5:30, I think it is. So we're going to get right from his mouth, and there's a chance that what he tells us tonight looks different than what's in front of you. This is what we know, and the packet that came to you this morning came from Chuck Schumer's office. So this is information that he provided right out of his office. So it's the best information I can possibly give you at this time. And there's the first page, I show you the 4 eligible uses of the stimulus money and what the distributions to Washington County look like. One of the important notes on here is that those town amounts include the village amounts for those towns that have villages. So what Schumer's office was saying is they don't know what the split between the town and the village is yet. So that number is all inclusive. So like in Matt Hicks town, the 710 is at 710 to the town. That's the combined total for the village and the town. My belief that the split is going to be per capita. So if you kind of know your numbers in and outside of the village, you can get a better handle, I think, on what your split might be. So just understand that the numbers on that paper are not completely to the town unless you're a town with no village. So seven of you are going to have to share that money. And the numbers are considerably lower than what was first released to us a month ago. So, and obviously the other important piece of that page is the 4 eligible uses, because we had started, internally talking about some of the best uses of that money, and probably 4 out of the 5 uses are now not allowed. So I'm hoping that, as a group, my recommendation would be to send to a committee or even a small working group that then brings to a committee some kind of a review of the use of the money within the rules laid out to us. And like I said, these 4 uses are what we know today. It could look different tomorrow. And the next 2 pages in the packet were where some of the other direct money went. So there's some direct money going to schools and other programs. I wanted to share with you some of those direct monies that are not coming through us. The last page in my packet, I toyed with sending it and not sending it, but I really wanted to share with you an example of what that working group might come up with. So if Washington County is scheduled to get $11.8 million, the early guidance that we're being told is that you'll get half of it up front, that you have to certify how it's spent in order to get the second half. If that becomes a reality, this sheet kind of shows you what Washington County could do with their first half of the money to certify the eligibility for getting the second half of the money. And there would be programs like a home improvement program that's very similar to like what HUD would do for like window replacement, siding replacement, insulation. It's kind of like a HUD program that you're all familiar with. We could mirror a program like that, but fund it from the stimulus monies. Because the allowable uses, remember, can be partnerships with not-for-profits. So I took a look at like our community action agency, which is LEAP, that has office space downstairs. they could run those monies through the job training program and the food pantry and transportation programs. Because if our first half of the disbursement is $5.9 million, we're luckier than our neighbors. We didn't take a $5.9 million hit in 2020. So we're going to need to find a way to get that money out to our community, or we're going to be giving it back to the feds. I think you can all agree we'd rather have it in our community than give it back to the feds. So these are an example of some of the possible community uses. This isn't like a formal proposal. This is my ideas of places you could use the money. Small business grants. I think a lot of the larger businesses were able to take care of some other stimulus. We're able to connect to some other stimulus money. I think there's a lot of small businesses in Washington County, and I define those as having under 50 employees, that didn't participate in any of the other stimulus money, had to take money out of their own pockets just to keep their doors open. I think that there's a way to give those smaller businesses, those mom and pop type businesses, some relief out of the stimulus money, because that would be eligible under eligibility criteria number 1, would make this program eligible. And then the last one I have on my list is some broadband money, because I think that you're going to find the grant that you're doing in partnership with the Lake Champlain Regional Planning Board is going to identify some needs in Washington County that are not otherwise funded by the state. And I think one of the ones that we hear a lot is, that guy that there's 2 houses on a street and they can see, a Spectrum pole from their house, and Spectrum wants $9,000 to connect. Well, that might be a great use of this money. We can pay to get them connected. They then have great high-speed internet, and in theory would increase the value of their home. If they increase the value of their home, we're increasing our tax base. Obviously, increasing the tax base is how you get your rate down. So there is a payback to investing into these types of programs. If you funded those programs on my sheet, it would still leave the county $4 million to recover any of its losses from 2020 and invest in any water, sewer, or broadband infrastructure that are allowable under the stimulus money. So that's a drive-by version of things that you could do with this money.
Dana Half?
Al, the town of Hartford is within Washington County.
Yes, sir.
The guy that can't see that pole, would that be the Washington County expenditure, or would that be the town of Hartford expenditure?
So we would fund that through the county stimulus money.
Okay.
Because again, I'd rather send it out to the community than give it back.
Okay.
Mr. Hicks?
Yeah, Matt Hicks.
To piggyback on Dana's question, though, if I can't use all my stimulus money with these 4 things, why wouldn't I want to contribute to that also and help broadband rather than sending it back out, right?
You sure could.
But instead of 17 different little broadband programs, is there a way that we could piggyback with the county to make that pool larger so there's one consortium spreading the broadband where we're all contributing towards it? Is that a possibility?
Yes, I think that partnership would definitely be allowable under the stimulus regulations. I don't know for a fact, but as I read it, it would be allowed. And I want to give credit to you, Mr. Hicks, because I want to throw out an idea that wasn't mine. But what would be interesting is if we find out that you can do some of these things, you can fund it with the stimulus money and then have it done with county workforces, so that you send out stimulus money that was restricted and it comes back as revenue to the county unrestricted. So when I say that we can't use all of it, we can't use all of it restricted. But if there's a way to use county forces to do the program, then it comes back as revenue to the county. You brought this up. I want to give you credit where credit's due. If that money then comes back as unrestricted money, then you could use it for some of the other things that weren't on the eligibility list from the beginning. So I thank you for that, because that's extremely creative.
John Rozell?
I'm assuming, like the small business grants, both for our communities and the county, we could do the same thing as the broadband.
Yeah, I didn't hear you, John.
He wants to know if it could be the same way for the the small business grants, we could do the same way as a consortium with the towns, also with the county, same type idea.
Yeah, if the town has money that they don't have earmarked for something else, and they wanted to partner with that small business program, absolutely. We're
gonna
stronger
have to
together. That's never gonna change. We're always stronger together.
Yeah, we're gonna have to get creative because that's the only way we get the most bang for our buck.
And like I said, the sheet that I gave you this morning only gets you through the first half of the money. There's another 5.9 million after that that's not even on this sheet.
Day and a half.
I noticed that the broadband was the last one on the list, but for my town, the other three really, I can't use the money for the other three. I don't have things to use it on, but the broadband, I could. So there was no priority to that list. It just happened to be.
There's no rhyme or reason to the order. And I think that you would find that people in your community, Mr. Half, would have a need for window replacement, siding replacement, insulation. I think you would find a need in your community for that. And I think that you have enough small businesses in your community too that might be eligible for those small business grants.
Yeah, but like Matt said, I don't want to set up an office in my town for those things. It would be best if because we don't want to be redundant in all of our efforts.
Yeah,
So.
no, these would be all county run programs, sir.
All right, thank you.
And actually 3 of the 4 we're going to give to another nonprofit to administer for us.
Okay, but I think it's a good idea that we would partner with the county to be the center for all the information, the database and the money, but like Hartford's money, if we pool with the county, Hartford's money would not go to Hebron, it would stay within the town of Hartford, but we would rely upon the county to help us figure out how to use that money.
Right, and to piggyback on my earlier conversation about cycling the money back, you could in theory pay the county $1,000 to administer the program for you, and that comes back as unrestricted money for the county. So there's, Matt, did I see your hand?
I was thinking by the same token, Dana, if I get to the end and the money's gonna go away in 6 months and I've just exhausted everything I can do and I got $50,000 left, it'd be better off for me to send that to the county program, knowing that none of that may be going to help anybody in Granville, but it's still better than sending it back to the feds. So I don't know if there's gonna be an earmark that whatever you put in, that percentage needs to come back to your town, but in the end, something's better than nothing, I guess.
But Matt, what is it the end of 2024 that this money has to be sent back?
Right.
Okay.
So initially, what I would say was I wanted to go where we already have our priorities set as to what we were trying to do as a county, but they may string us along to where we can't do those. But our priorities are still our priorities. And if there's a way to make them fit, and I've asked for clarification, I don't know if I'll get it or not get it, but if we could still find a way that when we do our county and town barns together, if we can, things like that are still priority. I know the big building out here for highway was always on the top of the list with no way to fund it. I mean, there's all sorts of things that were priorities that there's still priorities, and just because we have an amount of money that's supposedly coming to us, those are still our priorities. And I don't know that money should change those all that much, but we certainly want to look out for our small businesses and our citizens. That's number one. But by doing those priorities without borrowing money would also save them tax dollars and have a meaningful effect for the next 20 to 50 years, the things of those magnitude. But we'll just have to see where the guidelines end up in the long run. Go ahead, Matt.
And so Al, so obviously we paid time and a half last year. We also paid people who didn't work. So that's going to be covered, I would think, from a COVID-related standpoint. So that money we can claim, that would then come back and go into the general fund. Unrestricted to the point ones, and that'll be X amount of dollars. And I mean, like, if it was a highway worker, it would go back into the highway fund, right?
Yep.
So there will be unrestricted money that's coming back to help us based upon whatever expenses we had COVID related last year that's unrestricted that just goes into our coffers. Is that reasonable?
Yeah, and what I think what's going to be eligible, Matt, is anything that we paid over their budgeted salary. So we're probably not going to be able to recoup anything for the people that stayed home because that was already in our budget. I think what we're going to be able to recoup is like the time and a half that we paid, our hazard pay. I would argue that you could probably recoup the one-time payments. I would argue that you could recoup the vacation buyouts. So anything that was above and beyond what you normally would do, I think is an easy grab back. But to your point, that would come back as unrestricted money. And there are some things that aren't like really obvious on the surface. Like Brian's aware that our health insurance renewal right now isn't looking good because claims are drastically up from 2019. We're working with Empire Blue Shield right now to try to get a handle on a category of those claims that might be related to COVID. Because if we've got $1 million increase in claims, then 800,000 of that, the carrier tells us is related to testing or symptoms related to COVID-19. I would argue all day that money can be recaptured as well. So we're going to work really hard on every penny that we're eligible for.
Why couldn't you make the argument that if you needed to pay somebody to stay home, you lost the efficiency of
Absolutely.
the county, we should claim, I don't see why I wouldn't claim it.
I would claim that.
Well, yeah, I'm going to try, we would try as a county to claim every penny possible.
Okay.
I'm just preparing you for what my gut tells me. Because I was not warm and fuzzy about the time and a half being paid by FEMA from the beginning, and that turned out to be true. So I don't want to cash a check I haven't got yet, but I would absolutely try that. Yes.
Thank you.
Sue Clary.
Al, would the town be the same way? We get half up front and half later?
We're waiting for guidance on that, Sue. That might not be the case. You might get all of yours up front.
The other thing is interesting with broadband. I had about 3 conversations yesterday afternoon with, it's not some of the areas. Spectrum has been around for so long that some of their infrastructure is like bridges and roads. They haven't got the maintenance that they require and need.
Sure.
The wind affects them, the rain affects them. I have found that out just basically by having the town office on Main Street and having the house on 153. My house has great internet because it's next door to the school.
Yeah.
On Main Street, if you blow on it, it's going to go away. And so we talked with Kevin Lynch yesterday about the differences and where things can be improved. And it's just like anything, it needs upgrades and for things to work. And so would that be something that you could, and we're going into like a franchise agreement? And so
those expenses are eligible. It comes down to what your appetite is to spend those monies because, you might not want to favor any one carrier. But what you just described is broadband infrastructure and it is eligible under the plan.
And also sewer?
Water, sewer, and broadband are clearly covered.
Clearly defined.
Yep.
Wonderful. Good news. Thank you.
I got Bob Henke.
Yeah, are these 4 categories, those are the federal categories that they've put up. Who put the state in charge of approving whether we're following these categories or not?
I haven't seen that yet, Mr. Henke. I hope they're not.
Okay, because what we're hearing is that, the state's going to have an approval process in the middle of this, and I was just wondering what the statutory background for that is, or if it's just something that's being usurped. If it's usurped, we ought to make a big pitch against that. If it's federal money, the feds ought to decide whether we do it right or not.
Yeah, what could go wrong?
Yeah, right, exactly.
Mr. Schumer would probably like to hear about that. Go ahead, Matt.
One more
Yeah,
question,
sorry.
Al, you may not know the answer to this. It's talking about money spent on COVID last year and salaries last year and revenue lost last year. What about any investments we made in water, sewer, or infrastructure broadband last year? Can we recoup that to say we invested in that last year? we want to cover our last year's cost?
I would sure try.
Oh, that's an avenue to explore.
Laura Oswald.
So the other thing that I want to point out that should be an eligible expense is reimbursement for the tourism program. I actually put together some pretty extensive documentation because we moved the tourism program to largely be an informational respond to COVID, what's open, who can help you. We were going to try and get reimbursement through FEMA, but that didn't happen. And as you all know, I Love New York only reimbursed us on a very limited basis. So we should actually be able to do two things. We should be able to get some reimbursement for what was done last year. And as of right now, we have it on the books to spend $50,000 in county general funds. We were going to add bed tax to that, but we should be able to offset that general fund money by saying programming for this year should be eligible for that 11 million.
And Laura, I'm gonna actually take that one step further. Part of my $4 million that I left for the county, the tourism program was on my radar because it's one of the eligible expenses under bullet point number 1.
Right.
And I think that you could definitely invest maybe not only what you didn't do last year and to make 2021 whole again. I think in addition to making the budgets what they should have been, you could also put additional tourism monies into the budget because you're going to have to work harder now to reintroduce Washington County to as a tourist destination. So under bullet point 1, I think there's definitely room to actually beef up the county's tourism program in 20, 21, 22, 23. I think that you could actually do a multi-year plan that would be accepted.
I agree with you completely. We came to the same conclusion.
I just didn't lay out any of the county's use of the 4 million.
Don Ward.
Would the purchase of equipment such as trucks or graders of these things, if you needed for water or sewer or some other infrastructure, you think you could purchase equipment to do that?
Now that would be very interesting if you could pull that off. That would be a creative use of the money. I'm not sure you'd get that one through, but boy, why not try?
I don't know, there's a lot of drainage work that needs to be done this time of the year, so I gotta believe that comes underwater. Go ahead, Matt.
Al, do you think this money, whatever the extra amount is, will come, I know it's gonna be kind of via the state, directly to our town's bank accounts, and then we have to account and audit for that going forward? Or we get it as we apply for it, or is it upfront money that you have to send back if we don't use it?
So I don't know for a fact, but I can tell you it looks like it's upfront money that a CFO is going to have to certify the use of. That's what it looks like on the early stage. But again, we might find out more tonight at 5:30 when we talk to Mr. Schumer.
And I think Association of Towns is at 4:30. Did you ever hear back, Matt?
I used 2 different email addresses to apply to say, I want to sign up for the webinar yesterday, and as of this morning, I have not heard back from them.
And I did the same, but I did get my link to the county one,
So did I.
and that's at 5:30.
Right.
So Schumer's gonna talk to the Association of Towns at 4:30.
If it's the same story.
Well, I assume either one will be directly to towns and one will be directly to counties, but the fact that the county got a link and the town didn't, I don't know why that is. So, Association of Towns must be taking a back seat right now. Is there any supervisors that got any link to that, Schumer conference with Association of Towns at 4:30 today?
I got no answer, huh?
You what?
I got nothing back.
You just got the county one, yeah, okay. So we're all in complete agreement that Association of Towns is in trouble with us.
Did we all pay our dues?
Yeah, did we pay our dues?
Yeah.
Maybe we can get that money back for not being on the call. Very good. Is there anything else, Al?
2.5.
Al, how imminent is this money coming to the towns? Do we need to open up a new bank account for our towns and kind of segregate this money so that you don't just put it right into the general fund?
So I don't have clear guidance yet. I have a feeling that it's going to come to you through your vendor portal, the same place you get your state money. And then you'll put it in whatever bank account. I think you're going to need to be able to, I don't know that you're going to have to separate bank account, but you're definitely going to have to want to be able to account for it. So, in the county, at the county level, you could actually create a capital project so that you could track all of the costs independently.
I think I would want to set up a separate bank account so you can track it.
No harm in that at all.
It's certainly easier on our town level, or can be. Okay. Is there anyone else? Max?
So Al, what if I decided to do all my projects in my town in 2024? And my allotment is 500,000, I could take that 500,000, sit on it for 3 years, collect a couple % interest on it. No harm doing that, right?
If you're getting 2% interest, I need to talk to you.
Well, as an example, I mean, that's 10 grand a year in interest that I could just
Right.
go right in the general fund, right?
It's
Yeah,
unrestricted.
In theory, yes.
Okay.
That's what you think.
Well, there's a casino in Schenectady.
Well, and your other thing is with the cost of materials probably gonna spring up as everybody gets money, maybe waiting and you actually, a little normalcy comes back to the marketplace too in a year or two. Go ahead, Dave.
So curiosity is that when they talk about sewer and water, we have a county, Washington County Sewer District, but a lot of towns have their own districts. Can the money be used for specific parts of a town like that in a district? I'm just curious about that.
Right now, there's not anything in the current guidance that says you can't.
Okay.
So you can give it all to your fire department, Dave.
Well, better that than send it back, right?
Yep.
Yeah, but you know, there's,
Go ahead, Matt.
Well, piggybacking off what you just said, Brian, what if your fire department came to you and said, I've got this much in COVID-related expenses? Could they apply as a not-for-profit, Al, to get reimbursed for that?
I think you could definitely make an argument for that. And if you take a fire department like in Fort Edward is actually its own independent municipal organization. I think that a group like that could be done easily. But I think you'll find that most of your EMS and fire are probably 501c3 corporations. And under the current guidance, they would be a not-for-profit. So I think that there are opportunities, but the devil's in the details. Until the bill passes, we don't have clear guidance, but the information out of Schumer's office right now would make any nonprofit eligible for these monies. And so to me, that's EMS, fire, that's all inclusive.
As you just said, this bill though is already passed. It just lacks the president's signature. Am I right on that?
Did it pass? It passed the House?
Yes.
yes.
Nice.
So, yeah, so it's just guidance coming forward is what we need, and I'm hoping they'll expand the guidance and we can go forward with what our actual priorities were going in, not let alone just the new ones. Dan Shaw?
There. If we get the money sent to us directly and spend it, is there going to be any kind of a application process? Because we'll be winging it on whether we're eligible if we're trying to stretch the boundaries on this. In other words, if they say, no, that's not eligible and we spent the money on it, then we've got to give that back. So I'm just wondering if there's going to be a hotline or an eligibility request that you could send in before you spend it all.
Well, and as I say, Mr. Shaw, the devil's in the details. We'll see how it rolls out. The good news is if it's actually passed both houses now and it's headed to the president, Mr. Schumer should have some real answers tonight when you talk to him.
If we get on the call. Sue Clary?
Like the Washington County vaccine distribution has been so successful for all of our community residents. And I know that there's been a lot of volunteers that have been doing it. And we're only, I think, 17% of the way fully vaccinated, and we've got further to go. Can that money be used to continue the vaccination rollout?
So
And can we contribute to them?
in my opinion, not only can it continue the pods, it can pay for the pods we've already done. Because we've got about 20 people-ish at every pod, that most of those, like all of your buildings and grounds people, and, you know, they're all being paid right now off the county payroll. So we're going to be able to go back, and I think there's been 15 pods to date. We can go back and capture all of those costs and fund all the ones moving forward. I think the cost for the pods to do immunizations, I think that's an easy one. That should qualify all day long.
And also, isn't, I mean, like the Cambridge Valley Rescue Squad, I mean, it's not them, but the group that they've created, are they doing it voluntarily? Do they need support?
I'm gonna have a conversation about that offline. And because again, some of the ideas I have, I'm gonna label as creative, but I think that they're justifiable. So I think that partnership that we have with that group that's doing the immunizations, because they're a not-for-profit, I think there is some opportunities there.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Yep.
Okay, John Ravel?
Reading through this, there's what, 6 or 7 of us that have village and towns together.
Yes, sir.
I'm assuming we could probably seems the town of Whitehall doesn't have sewer district or water. You could piggyback with the village, put money into them the same way as good with the county.
My gut reaction is yes, John, but again, we'll see how the guidance rolls out. I don't see any reason that you couldn't use part of your town money to invest in the sewer and water infrastructure within your town. Absolutely.
Dana F.
Al, I'm going to ask you to look 3 years into the future. Any of these things that we invest in now, we need to be careful that they don't also have legacy costs going forward, because we bought into something that we now have to maintain for years and years and years, you know, vehicle, various things. What type of things, and it's probably too big of a question for you to ask, but are there things that you know of that we probably should be very aware of that might be a legacy problem?
So anything that you do that's new, you would want to be very conscious of. So I think we have a lot of capital needs that have already been identified. So if you're going to do money that's already been identified with this money instead of county money, then to me, that's a win. What you would have to be cautious of is, say you're going to expand a sewer district or a water district, and you know you're now going to include 30 new residences. So that's great because you know you've brought that infrastructure to those 30 residences, but you now have the repair, maintenance, and you know whatever flow is needed to generate for them. So there are some unintended consequences and legacy costs to anything that you do that's new. But I think that you'd want to look at stuff that you already have planned first. And I think that broadband is a great example of a possible win-win, because you're going to invest in a product that you can invest in and then step away.
John Ravel?
These figures you have on this, on the 4 steps for the county, Al, say broadband needs 500,000. You take that away from home improvement, the balance. It's not set, or?
No, this is just completely an example off of the top of my brain. You could put $1 million to broadband and give 3 million to the county. I mean, you can divvy up the money any way the board sees fit. And that's why I thought that a smaller working group would be great to kind of kick around, the ideas. But that's for the chairman to decide.
in any consortium in that area too would expand those numbers if the towns and the county work together. It might get you there also. Chairman, go ahead.
Oh, you muted still,
You're
Sam.
muted there, Sam. Sam, I can hear you because you're in the other room, but there you
Didn't read my
go.
lips, I understand. Yes, based on Al's comment, I prepared to a working group that could work on this issue, because these are not the only items that may be covered. There may be other ideas and thoughts that are out there. And it would give them a chance to brainstorm and then come back and report to the board. And I would like to appoint the finance chair, Mr. Campbell, Supervisor Griffith, Supervisor Hogan, Supervisor Hicks, Supervisor Hanky, along with our county treasurer, county administrator, and our planning and economic development personnel to chair up this, not the committee, to be part of that committee. And then they would report back probably to the finance committee with the ideas and the thoughts that they come up with. Those people interested in accepting those responsibilities?
Yes, sure.
Jim, you're a yes? Mr. Campbell?
Yep.
Supervisor Hanky?
Yep.
Supervisor Hogan?
Yes.
Okay, and Supervisor Hicks?
You're breaking up, Sam, I can't hear you.
I'll take that as a yes. Thank you. And then our county treasurer, and then county administrator, and certainly we'd want our economic development Laura on there as well to head to work on this issue.
Thank you, Chairman. I think that's a fantastic idea.
Thank you.
Very good. Is there any more questions on this, or can we move on?
And
Okay,
as I learn more, Chairman Campbell, as I learn more, I'll share it with you immediately.
Yeah, it changes by the minute, just like everything else.
Sure, if you don't do that, call us after then, there'll be a recap coming.
Yeah, it'll be taped or delayed or something, who knows? Okay, so now we're on basically to our resolutions, I believe. And that's where the coroners is, right? Everything's in the...
Yeah, we start with.
Yeah. So we'll start with Resolution B on the sewer district. We're recognizing, what are we recognizing? Repairs. So is there any questions on the sewer district, increasing the appropriation in the revenue?
It was repairs they did for the town of Kingsbury, Brian.
Yes. Is there any questions on that, or I need a motion to move it then? Moved by Lester Losaw, seconded by Don Ward. Any more discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, Resolution C. Okay, so we have some capital plan projects here coming up where they need some different money, whether they be change orders or upgrades. The first one here is the St. Paul elevator. We need to take 3,112 out of the 125 capital plan contingency to finish this project. So I need a motion to do that. Moved by Dave O'Brien, seconded by Don Ward. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Can't vote until Mr. Henry comes back, can we? We started talking about he left the room.
He wasn't moved,
Okay.
I think. Is that the rule?
Is it moved or just introduced?
But I thought it was for full board meetings.
We're on.
Well, we're in the committee, yeah. Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay. D is the law center. And the reason this is being brought up is because this one was already engineered, ready to go out to bid. And with the money going to the bond for the roof, this money will be available now to get this moving and get it done. We were all set to go when COVID hit, and we just didn't because of that. So I need a motion to move this forward now and make that happen. Moved by Don Ward, second. Dana Hogan. Any discussion?
Brian,
Bob Henke?
is the engineering and stuff still accurate in the bids and stuff on the equipment?
Matt Jones is shaking his head yes. Go ahead, Matt.
Okay, because that was a year ago.
Yep, it is. I confirmed that first.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. E is the Cradle Point, replacement. This is an IT, and same deal, needs a little more money to finish up the program. So $9,700 from contingency, so I need a motion to finish that project. Moved by James Griffith, second by Don Ward. Any more discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay, the same thing with the fuel grade system. There was a change order there, $5,300 out of contingency to finish that upgrade. Need a motion to make that happen. So moved. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by Jay Skelly. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. G is the capital improvement plan for the Burgoyne roof. And this is for engineering in 4,400, same idea here. Need a motion to finish that. Moved by Lester Losaw, second by Dave O'Brien. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Carried. Okay. H, capital improvement plan, the Burgoyne Avenue roof replacement and building repairs. Those are all the things that we're doing with the bonds, and this is to approve as soon as we get the money to make those things happen. So I need a motion. Moved by Dave O'Brien, second by John Rozell and Sue Clary. Any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution I, Child Passenger Safety Grant. I think we're just changing years here, just moving that money along. Need a motion for that? So moved. Moved by Dave O'Brien and second by Don Ward. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Carried. Resolution J is a preparedness grant, same thing, unspent funds being moved into the current year. Need a motion? Moved by James Griffith, second by Don Ward. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. The next one is recognize unspent delivery system reform incentive program district funds in public health. Same thing. Motion to move that. Moved by Cassie Fedler, second by Sue Clary. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution L is Marchicelli funding. I believe it ended up costing less than we originally anticipated, if I've got that right. So it reduces the local share. So motion to correct that. Moved by Jay Skelly, seconded by Cassie Fedler. Any discussion there? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Carried. F, Church Street Bridge, again, Marchicelli funding. Same thing. Motion, John Rozell. Second, Jay Skelly. Cassie Fedler. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Carried. Resolution N, refrigeration fees. That's being changed within the coroner's budget, and so it's just according to how many cases there are. So we need a motion to move that. Moved by Mr. Ward. Is there a second? Mr. Losaw, any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Was there any discussion? Those are all just motions, right? John Rozell?
When we went forward, is this to pay what we already owe them, or is this for the future? I guess what I'm asking, I guess Glens Falls Hospital or something was rebuilding or something, so we might
Yeah.
not.
Right, it could be temporary, we just don't know at this point, I guess.
Right.
But we have to pay it until we find out differently, that's for certain.
Yeah.
Okay, so that passed, that was already voted on. Okay, and O is title grade scheduled per diem communication officers, so the per diems are getting paid, with the current people that are in there full time. So I need a motion for that. Moved by Don Ward, second by Sue Cleary. Is there any discussion on that? All in favor, say aye. Opposed? And carried. Okay. Next up is the electric charging station proposal that I sent everybody. And to begin with, we sent it out, and then it was brought to my attention by Chris Belden, who is probably on at the moment. And that we are in opportunity zone here in the town of Fort Edward, so therefore there was another $6,000 that was available to us, and that's what we're looking at, is all the incentives we can get. And when I looked at this plan, the whole thing's about infrastructure and how fast things are changing around us. I did send you an email this morning. I don't know if anybody printed it out yet or not. I made them available here in this committee here, but I don't know if everyone got to see it, that it was sent in an email. And it's an email format, it's very rough numbers, but basically the way it's put in these numbers, the level 2 charging stations, a 1 hour charge will give you about 25 miles. And I'm looking at approximately 6 cars in the first year, and at 15,000 miles a car, it's about 90,000 miles. That's roughly 60 miles a day on the days that they go out, and I put in 250 days. I'm being really conservative because I don't want to inflate it and make it look like it's a real money-making proposition or anything to that deal. I want it to be real. So the charger can go a maximum of 7.2 kilowatts per hour. So the average is somewhere around 7. For us, our cost here, we're at like 8.5 cents per kilowatt hour. So you're right around 60 cents. What they've claimed to us is that you would price it at least double what your rate is to offset the cost of this maintenance, which is what the bill is at just over $30,190, or somewhere in that range. So I tried to find a way as to where that would work. The 60 cents would be our actual cost. If Carpool paid the 60 cents and if the public paid the 60 cents, you would need the public to actually charge for like 18 hours a day, 365 days a year to make that all come out. Whether that's, there's 4 stations that are right by the road, whether 4 stations would get that amount of time, 4.5 hours a day in each parking space, or collectively, whatever. I don't know the answer to that. It's according to how many of these vehicles come online. But it's a way to make it pay for itself. Now, there's nothing else we do that really does that. Like when we redo our gas pumps or anything to do with that, we have to pay from somewhere else. It's not in your gas bill. So I was trying to find a way to make the thing pay for itself. And so Carpool would save a lot of money if they only paid the electric rate and didn't have to upkeep the infrastructure, because Carpool doesn't keep upgrading the fuel system, so why would it do that? But if we can make these things pay for themselves, it would be a lot better. So basically that's how I got to these numbers with what our actual costs were. So at the bottom, you see if gas vehicles at 90,000 miles, at 35 miles per gallon. I don't know that they can average 35 miles a gallon, but I think they can average 30 easy enough, maybe 35. Our actual bill is $2.16 a gallon. which is hard to imagine on 280 some odd cent fuel right now, but that's what our bill is. So I put down what those gallons of fuel are, what that cost is, and I put that against what the electric should cost for that same amount of miles. And I got like a $1,235 savings. I've been extremely conservative, so I don't think any of those are high. But so that's what I'm looking at. The infrastructure, and this is the biggest deal, the infrastructure right now is being paid for. If 3 years from now it's mandated and they already paid for all of it and they didn't know, and we didn't jump on, then we're going out and we're spending $100 and some odd thousand to make it happen. So this is where it's starting today. I don't know if it belongs in this committee or not. To me, it's all about numbers. That's my job. It's supposed to be about the numbers. But we had our discussion in ag planning about the smart cities or climate communities or whatever. We'll go back there for those discussions. So maybe ag planning is where it belongs. DPW is actually who runs the carpool. These are where the cars are going to be charged, so maybe it belongs there. Government ops is where buildings and grounds, and Matt Jones was really good with all the questions. He put these people over in our site visit, and so was Chris Belden, who's with us today from Lake Champlain, Lake George Regional Planning. It was really good to see all these people brought together that have a lot more knowledge about this than I do, and get the answers to questions that I couldn't think of. And I've had a lot of supervisors come up with questions that are very important questions. So I don't know where we want to move this to next, but to me, just this one email that I sent out shows me that the infrastructure is going to get paid for, actually with our funds, because the state's giving away our funds. They're making it happen, and if we don't do it, somebody else is doing it on our dime, and we're just going without. So that's the way all grants work. I mean, that's just the bottom line. So this is where we're starting today. I'm hoping we're going to have a lively discussion. I hope people have paid attention and read up on this so we can have a good discussion. And Dana Half, I see you're ready to roll, so let's go.
Thank you, Brian. I think the discussion about charging stations for the public use belongs in no committee. That's not the role of government. That's why we got out of the transfer stations. That's why we got out of the nursing home. And if you can remember, every program that this government ever thought of to make money lost lots and lots of money. So when you say that this will pay for something, I think in the future it's going to cost us money. But the general idea of we would put this out there, a retail type thing, where other retail businesses are thinking about doing the same thing, does not belong in government, not at all. If you want to discuss about charging stations for carpool, that's a completely different subject. But to offer it near the road, to solicit the public to charge their car, not a role of government. We shouldn't even talk about it.
Okay, so Dana, just to address that, the only reason that we're looking at this is why it's funded nearly 100%. This is why it's funded so high. If we do it all on our own, we have to pay half of it. So we're out another 50,000 or so. And I don't know that I want us to be out another 50,000 for that. And then the benefit of the public here is being in an opportunity zone where there's no other charging stations at the moment. People can come and charge their car while they're at DMV or while they walk down to McDonald's or over to Market 32 or go to the bank and things like that, and their car can be charging. And so there's a lot of side benefits here, and employees that work here. If you rent somewhere and you don't have a place where you can really plug in your car at your apartment because it's on the second floor and you don't want to run a lead cord 500 feet, maybe you come here and charge your car while you're working. So there is some, side benefits to that, and these are actually things you made me think of because I thought your email was really good and dead on. And I understand your thought process because that's where I was to begin with, but I couldn't see why we would invest our own money if they were willing to pay it all just because we let people charge their car.
Because it's wrong. Don't prostitute yourself for money. If it's wrong,
they're still gonna they're still gonna pay for the charging, Dana, so they're paying us the electric bill plus the maintenance, and I think that, I don't see that as being wrong. I think there's a lot of things the government do with that.
You're entering into a retail arena, which is where government should not be.
I appreciate that. James Griffith.
Just some insight to the retail arena that Dana's talking about. I know for a fact at some locations that we're already starting to put charging stations in, and they'll be in many locations, retail locations. I would assume that Market 32 has already been approached by somebody to put charging stations in over at their facilities as well. So to Dana's point, you know, us getting into the retail arena of these might not be it might not be in our best interest, you know, without fully vetting it out.
And the good news of that is time transpires. If they don't want to charge here, that's even better for us. So if the business world takes them away, that's better for us too. But for the people that stop at DMV and want to charge while they're there, that's also a good thing. So I don't see us in competition. I just see it as an availability thing as this market changes. Bob Henke.
What we're talking about right now, and I think right now, you know, the savings of the carpool is all well and good, but probably the cost of the cars is gonna, you know, balance that out. However, if this is something that's getting more and more and more mandated, chances are we're gonna need to have more and more and more charging stations for county cars, and probably we're gonna phase out our availability to the public anyway. You know, so, you know, I think we're probably just building the infrastructure that we're ultimately gonna need if this goes forward. Now, I'm not completely on the electric car bandwagon yet, so don't get me wrong, but, there's a lot of other ones that are. And if they are, and we are under mandates, chances are we'll fill up a charging station anyway.
And that's my problem. I don't really want to pay for it if they sent money for it. It's just like where we're at with probation software.
Right.
We didn't take it, so guess what? Now we get to pay for it. That's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah.
And that's kind of why I'm trying to start it in DSS, is because we pay for a quarter of the car. So if it all unravels and they change their mind and we're going to burn rocket fuel instead, that's fine. We're going to have the least amount of money at risk as possible.
I want hydrogen, the explosions will be so much better.
Is there anyone else? Matt Hicks.
Well, John Waddell was in ahead of me.
Oh, where's John? Go ahead.
Well, I see in the future where the electric cars, the major companies are going to be within 15 years going all electric. You can buy an electric pickup truck now. And I would be willing to do for county vehicles. I agree with Dana. I don't know if we should be doing it for the public. And Brian, the person that lives in a 2-story apartment with no way to plug in a car shouldn't be buying an electric car.
It will if it's cheaper, John.
And you got the mileage figured out. And we got to look at that at the county level also, because I guess what your paper is all just for the public.
No, what I'm referring to is 6 electric cars, because you got to start somewhere. So at 90,000 miles on 6 electric cars, that's 15,000 miles a year. That would be roughly 60 miles daily for 250 days. That's the part I'm looking at. That's on our side.
Okay, I'm just saying if we do it as a county, we got to look at the cost of the batteries and the whole show of these electric cars to see what they compare and how much we'd save. But I do believe that in the future, probably 10 years from now, 15 years, it's going to be in everybody alone one.
Very good. Thank you, John. Matt Hicks.
I'm not being critical, Brian, it's just that I know you've been working on this for a long time, and you're right down to the nitty-gritty trying to figure out all the expenses here and stuff, so you're 1,000 feet off the ground. I'd like to start at 30,000 feet, talk about the concept, what we're really talking about, and all the assumptions thereof, because you've thrown the word mandate around a couple times. Are there mandates coming? Are we assuming there's mandates, and who's gonna mandate
There always
what?
has been whenever they start this way. I guess that's,
Whatever, who starts what way?
the federal government or the state government, when they start this way, they give you all the opportunity to buy in, and then as soon as they decide, you know what, enough is bought in, and they shut it down and they mandate it. That's the way it's worked all the time I've been here.
Okay, so
And I think Bob can attest to that.
Well, but that's an assumption.
Yeah, but I think a pretty good one from past history.
They're gonna mandate that the county provides electric charging stations?
No, they may mandate that all county or municipal vehicles are electric. They may mandate that.
Okay. Again, that's conjecture, but, so, we've got several pages of, invoices and numbers, and can we just start at the top and sort of say, the original proposal is to do what? What for the county, what for the public, what's it gonna cost us? What's our net cost after getting whatever we're getting back from whoever we're getting it back from? And how's it gonna benefit us in the long run? I need the whole picture.
Okay.
You're at step 9, I'm still at step 2.
Okay, so Matt Jones is there so he can jump in and help me here if I get lost. So basically, there's $129,000 worth of investment here, and 98,000 something, 441 is what is going to be incentivized.
But wait, there's 2 invoices here, one's for 22 and one's for 8.
That's where our cost, that's our net cost, but the total cost for everything is 129. The incentives are 98,441.
And they're from NYSERDA?
NYSERDA, and the other one is National Grid, is that right?
Right. It's your utility.
The utilities.
So if we were gonna do what's on your picture of 2 separate, a county charging and a public charging, 2 separate items, right?
They're not really separate. They're just in 2 different locations.
But one would be primarily used for our vehicles.
Well, you would expect that people that are looking for the charging station are gonna find it where it's readily,
Okay.
Available to see. We expect they will use the ones by the road, but the others are still available when we're not here.
Okay. So we're looking at, it's 129,000 of which then our cost is around 30,000.
Yes.
Okay. To go from where we are to having those installed.
And but it just happens to be that the 30,000 is what the 5-year warranty and the software package cost. So basically, all you're paying for is the sum of money that is equal to the software package and the warranty.
But our upfront cost would be $30,000.
Yes.
And that would provide us these charging stations that are on the picture at no additional cost for 5 years.
Yes. The only additional cost will be any work that Buildings and Grounds does in installing the electric line from one room in the basement to another room, and any digging or anything underneath or any concrete work we may have to do.
And because these are being subsidized by NYSERDA and by the utilities, these would then be not regulated public charging stations. They would be open to whoever can pull up
Yes.
and use them. And is there any charge per se to plug them in? Is there a cost if I put my electric car? Do I have to pay something?
So like with our carpool, they would just use a regular RFD tag like they do to get fuel. It would just pay for the electric at the charging station. If you come in, you would either use your phone and an app or a credit card or their own card, that type of deal.
So the county wouldn't be paying for electricity that I charge in my car. I would be paying for it through a card or through an app. So there wouldn't be any cost of electricity to the county.
Right, and ideally, you would charge at least double so that it would pay for
But the county would charge double what the county costs are.
Yes.
To help offset.
To offset the cost of the software and the warranty so that it would be budget neutral. That's what this goes when when you get right down to the nitty gritty.
Okay.
You don't have to charge that, you
Right.
don't have to charge that.
Right.
It would be in the interest to charge that so that you're covering any additional expenses you might incur.
Yep.
Brian, your math is in the assumption that public are gonna use and pay that money.
But
If
18 hours a day is all I put in here.
Hold on, if no one uses it, no public uses any at all, the county would still be responsible for their costs.
Okay, and wait a minute, let me give you what that.
What electricity costs, if nobody's charging?
No, be no electricity
I'm
costs.
saying if the county's charging,
Yeah,
you'd be paying for own electricity.
yeah,
If no one in the public pays,
Right.
they have to pick up all the costs for the county
What costs?
uses of electricity.
No, under, the way I have it written here, Dave, the carpool is paying the maintenance costs too, which is different than we've ever done. When we have a fuel pump break or we have an upgrade, we go find money for it. I'm saying, this is your savings with that maintenance even built in on the carpool side. So the part here that is actually maintenance from the public is about $4,000. So you'd be out $4,000 a year, $3,942.
public charging, $3,942.
Yes.
And why would we be out that? I thought they're paying at the.
No, they're paying for the electric. But if you're charging double, if it's just exactly double, $3,942 is what they pay in electric. But if they aren't charging at all, the most you can be a hook for is that same number, the $3,942 in maintenance costs.
If nobody charges.
If nobody charges at all, that's your total cost.
Per station, per charging station?
No, for all of them.
For all.
When you're charging, who are they paying their money to?
I believe that will go right to ChargePoint and we will get reimbursed, but Matt Jones can probably answer that better.
Yeah, they'd be paying through their app or their credit card through ChargePoint, and then it would be refunded to the county, whatever kilowatt hours we use. That's the software, what he's talking about, the software for each one is also the tracking for how much kilowatt hours, how many hours each station has charged a car. It's an online program that basically would take care of all the, that part of it for us and then just refund us.
Well, that'd be my question. We don't have to have any labor involved with
No.
any of this.
Nope. Okay.
So it was my understanding that this isn't the firm cost, because the only thing we got for installation from the electrical contractors is estimates.
Yes.
So we're not sure exactly what it's gonna fit in, except for maybe it's in the right range.
Matt, I'll have you speak to that.
I did confirm that these estimates from plug-in stations, I spent a bunch of time yesterday, they're just estimates, they're not quotes, but I believe they're true estimates. I believe we're gonna be in that ballpark. I don't have any reason to believe that they wouldn't be.
You got Cassie, she's been.
Cassie, go ahead.
So this really isn't a comment on the discussion, but I'd like to remind people that are in the room up there, Matt and Dave, that when you guys argue back and forth, those of us that are at home can't sort it out and hear what you're saying. You need to remember you need to talk one at a time and not argue, because even though you're right next to each other, we can't hear you clearly.
Hey, thank you very much for that, Cassie. I can't wait till we meet in person again. Day and a half.
I remember not that long ago, we paid for a study to come up with more parking spaces because we do not have enough parking spaces at the county. Now we have an excess of parking spaces that we can devote 6 to the public. I know when we recreated that parking spot over by the DPW building, I think we were talking about by the road, that was because that was a way to get more parking spaces because we really need more parking. Now you're going to devote that to retail? What happened?
Okay.
What happened to the need of more parking spaces for business?
So Dana, there's 4 spaces that'll be out front, not 6. And there'll be 8 spaces out back. That's how we get to the 12. There are already 12 designated DSS cars, so it won't change the number of spots that DSS has designated. It'll just be where they're at. The 4 out front, just by moving Board of Elections down there, you save those 4 spaces because there's 4 people there. So really, it doesn't change the parking at all.
So we don't have a parking problem now.
But this doesn't conquer it, nor does it make it any worse. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. It doesn't change the parking problem.
But aren't we supposed to be improving the parking problem?
We would like to improve the parking problem, but we tried that once before, and if you remember, that got voted down.
Well, got voting down to pave and everything else, but not to create more spots.
Well, that was how we were doing it, was during that program. And we did create more spots because those are more spots that are paved out there.
Brian, you're going to come up with a reason no matter what. So
Well,
even
you're
if
asking the question, I can only answer with what I know.
I doubt seriously that we now have an excess of parking spots that we can now consider putting them towards retail. With COVID, nobody comes to the county building anymore, but eventually that's going to stop and we're going to need parking spots again.
And I don't disagree with you at all on that. Good point. Sue Clary.
Brian, I've read your proposals with interest. I feel like it's a part of like going green, but I also feel like it's like this much in a bigger picture. How many electric cars do we have in carpool right now?
None.
None. That's exactly what I mean. How do we go forward with the going green aspect? Will we think about doing electric cars through carpool?
Well, and that's the point. That's the point here. Is it's the chicken or the egg?
Exactly.
I can't really sign to buy an electric car if there's no way to power it. So
Right.
this part has to happen in order to buy the car. And then at the same time, there's a limited amount of money that NYSERDA has available for the purchase of electric cars, which is $5,000 a piece, which is $30,000. I don't think it's going to be spent all tomorrow, but if we wait till June and July, that money could have dried up by then, and we're out, our portion of that $30,000, which it just costs us more money, and these are all savings to us on the purchase of the vehicles. So I'm looking at the big picture, as Matt Hicks said, not down at the 1,000-foot level where I set you numbers this morning, but at the 30,000-foot level, and it's all tied in, and that's why I have Chris Belvin with us here today, is because there's going to be grants for all of these things going forward as they try to expand on this. So like right now, there's DC fast charging grants in the areas of Western New York and Syracuse, because there's already a lot of level 2 charging stations in Albany, and the people in Albany that go to Syracuse and Buffalo want to be able to fast charge so they can go out and come back. So as that opens up, that'll come back to our area, and that's when I would expect the public sector more or less to be more involved with the DC fast charging, because that's where the meat of the thing is going to be eventually. For us, it's very reasonable to get in at this size with the level 2 charging, because our cars, for the most part, sit there overnight, can be parked and charged and ready to go the next day. And so fast charging won't be a huge demand for the county unless you need a quick turnaround, or if they go to all your highway trucks and all that, then they might need fast charges to get back out and spread salt and plow. So I don't know exactly where that's all going. I can't predict the future. I just see where all the private enterprises put their money, and the big three have put it in electric vehicles. So I don't think that's going away. Matt Hicks, I had next.
So really, the 3 options that we're talking about here is we could do nothing and stay status quo, buy gasoline-powered vehicles and let things happen, right? On the other end of the spectrum is we invest in this, our upfront costs are around $30,000, and if we end up buying electric cars, we're gonna get some payback on some of these to try to offset that to some degree. Or we wait and see with the assumption that A, the incentives are gonna go away, we assume that we will be mandated, and we assume that we're gonna go to all electric vehicles, right? So those are the three options. And it's sort of rolling the dice, trying to predict the future to say, it's a good idea to stand pat, or it's a good idea to go all in right now. But it's all based upon the assumption of whether we're gonna be mandated and whether we're gonna lose all our incentives to put these plug-in, because we don't know, these plug-in station incentives could be around for 2 years, right?
Yes, but at the same time, and that's why Mr. Belden's on, all these programs that are listed, you move up the ladder to get to the next level. They're all convoluted that way, as you saw in ag planning the other day. So as you qualify higher on things you've done already, you move up the ladder to go further up to get more funding, which can be substantial according to how much you've done. If you wait till say you're in the last round to get a charging station, but then you also need something at a new highway barn, or you need something for heat and energy or lights here, you might be at the bottom of that totem pole to get funding for that, because everyone that's stepped in front of you is halfway up the ladder and you haven't stepped on the bottom rung yet.
Don't be offended, but I don't wanna go on what we think we might know.
No, that's what we do know. That's the way
What we
they're
do
set
know
up.
is you're looking at $30,000 is the number we're talking about to get started.
Yes.
That's really the only thing we know at this point.
Well, no, we know what those funding streams are and how they're set up. We know the programs
Currently. Right, okay.
So, thank you for the effort, Brian. This is you spent the last 6 weeks doing a lot of work on this, and like Matt said, we're ground 1 and 0 or 2 and getting a little bit higher. Have we taken a look at other sources for this car charger, or are we just focused on one?
This is the one that the state got the state bid because the state limited it to you had to have like 500,000 stations out there in order to qualify.
Or are there others on state contract?
There could be. I do not.
So we didn't look at those?
I do not know. I know Matt's looked into some of those things. I don't know how far he's gone, Matt.
There is 3 on state contract. Being that said, state contract is a contracted price, so all 3 are gonna be pretty similar to price. The labor and the make ready is what could possibly change. The make ready being the actual electrical to run the charging stations.
So we focused on one. What I heard from Matt is that we're not sure what the installation cost would be.
But we know that's 90% funded, no matter what that cost is.
Correct, but is there any other charges that are gonna show up? Is there maintenance on the software package after the first 5 years? What other maintenance we have to do on these stations after the 5-year maintenance that we're paying for?
It would.
You would have to renew. You would have to renew that contract in 5 years. Your maintenance, it's like a software maintenance. When it runs up, you're paying 5 years. You move on. There's probably updates that keeps you updated into the what you need.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want it to be behind what the app does. You want the app to work no matter where you're at.
So when we're looking at this, we're in default making another decision. If we say yes on this, in default, we're making another decision that we're gonna have to buy electric cars. It's not making a separate discussion. It's making it.
Well, it isn't a separate discussion. If they say in 15 years they're only gonna have electric cars, guess what? We're gonna be buying electric cars.
Oh, I understand that. That doesn't mean we're gonna buy electric cars today.
No, we can pay for it all on our own later. That's where I'm at. I've seen this dog and pony show before. Anyway, we have not heard from Dana Hogan yet, so I'm gonna listen to whatever Dana has to offer.
Hey, Brian, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
All right. The one thing where you guys, I heard the discussion about all electric vehicles in the future or a portion. The one thing I could potentially see is where the state of New York, like on a DSS purchase, we may now be looking at reimbursement. We could be see levels of reimbursement if we buy electric vehicles, levels of reimbursement if we continue to buy combustible vehicles. Where I'm going with this is that would we look at this right now as a multi-year purchase plan where, you know, I think I said this to you the other day, like if we buy 6 this year, do we look at 6 next year? You follow where I'm going? Like what percentage would you want to get to right now in our total fleet being electric vehicles? Does that make sense? And I'm wondering, do we have any way of knowing what the future could hold in terms of the state to say, we want all of our municipalities that we provide aid to have a percentage of their vehicles be green or electric vehicles? And the other quick follow-up, do hybrid vehicles count toward this incentive package or not? Do you happen to know that one?
Yes, I believe there is some incentive. I'll let Chris Belden speak to that because he might know more on that.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
Do the hybrids get the same incentives of the electric or an incentive?
For the actual vehicle purchases?
Yes.
I believe so. I mean, they have to qualify, they have to meet a certain threshold, you know, performance threshold, but yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just a different number, whether they're all electric or whether they're a hybrid and what the threshold is, I believe.
All right, so going back to that original question though, what do you see? Like, do you see this being 1, 2, or 3 years purchasing these for the short period of time to test to try it out? I mean, for a year or two to see what they look like and how they perform.
Well, yes, that's kind of what we do in DSS anyway. They have 12 designated cars and we've bought 3 a year because that's how their funding works. So the idea with this was if there's 12 stations, because this looks like where it comes out in a good area for where we're headed. So if there's 12 stations and there's 12 designated DSS cars, eventually we already have the infrastructure built to be there. So I'd probably start with 6 because the 17s can come into the carpool already because we're in 2021. The 18s were more towards the end of the year. They can't come into the carpool till the end of the year. But I would probably buy the 6 because we're not limited to how many we can buy. We're just limited to when the old ones come to the carpool. They have to stay in the fleet, in the DSS fleet for 3 years. So it's more likely going to be 6, 3, and 3 than 6, 20, and 30. I mean, we're along those lines, yes.
So if we have 12 cars, let's say in 3 years, that's roughly 10% of our fleet. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay. My last quick question, because I don't have your math up in front of me, but when you did your math on the cost comparison between a combustion engine and an electric engine, did you factor in the warranty? Because it does seem like the warranty on the electric vehicles are significantly better than a combustion vehicle now.
No, I did not put that in at all. And it's like 8 years, 100,000 miles on the battery.
Yep.
And
I mean, that's a significant number for that first 8 years.
And the way I understand it, the battery, the one I drive has 180 cells, and you can replace each cell individually. And they said very seldom do they have a problem that's more than 2 or 3 cells need replacing. So that's a whole different item. Well, and it's a case where we're self-insured. So if we had a major accident with one, we would total it and get rid of it and buy a new vehicle rather than go through all that cost.
But even where I was going with that is at end of year 4, those combustion engines, they're no longer under warranty. And if we lose a transmission, whatever, we still have roughly 5 more years of a warranty on an electric vehicle, correct?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Okay, I got John Roselle next.
How about, has Warren County got the charging stations set out front of their establishment?
Mr. Belden, would you like to speak on that?
Sure. Yeah, I wasn't directly involved in the siting and installation of the charging stations at Warren County, but there are 5 dual port charging stations, so 10 potential hookups. They did purchase it. They did purchase through ChargePoint, and they utilized plug-in stations online, which is who you got the quote from. But in Warren County, they did put it out to bid. Even though there was the state contracting for the stations, it doesn't include some of those other things like the warranties and the maintenance contracts and so on. So I can certainly share some of the more boring details offline about what we put out for, but we asked for an annual network subscription cost, site activation cost, so on and so forth. So and those did vary between vendors. And actually, it looks like the unit cost was actually less than what was on state contract and what you were quoted at. So there may be some benefit to using that NYSERDA approved vendor list and pushing out a bid to see what kind of pricing you can get.
Do you know the net cost of what those 10 stations were and when they actually did it?
I don't know. I don't have that information, but the incentives were, the same as they are now. The Charge New York, so it was the 8,000 for the dual charge stations. The benefit, like you mentioned earlier, in that state opportunity, there's an additional 500 per port for communities located in opportunity zones, which you guys just happen to fall within. So you're looking at like 9,000 versus the 8,000 Warren County got. The other difference is that the power was there. It wasn't as big. I know you guys with putting the power out back, you'll be taking advantage of that nice national grid money. We didn't have that issue in Warren County because of the location of the actual stations. So so the net cost would have been different, but the incentives that you're considering are similar to what Warren County had.
Okay, John?
And are they, how long have they been in? Are they showing the same reimbursement that we would be getting? And have they been fully covered, or is it costing Warren County to keep them there if they're not used, so on and so forth? Has any homework been done on that?
I don't have that information. They were just put into operation, I think, at the end of 2019, though. And then, COVID happened last year. So I'd expect they probably aren't getting as much utilization as they were expecting. But yeah, I don't have that information. If you'd like.
I was just going to draw out one fast fact here on the cost of the charge point stations and the $9,000 reimbursement for a double station. Just so happens to be that the quote is the same cost as the reimbursement for the most part. So we're getting them for free. So even if we were to put out for bid and say they were $3,500 instead of $4,500, we're only going to, it's neutral to us. It's really the vendor because of the grant money. If you understand what I'm saying, it's like they're making the price of the actual charging station pretty close to the cost of the reimbursement.
That makes sense. Dana Half, I think you're next.
What about the maintenance of an electric vehicle? Can carpool do it? Do you have to be an electrician? I imagine, there's certain things that are the same for a combustible engine, like the brakes and other things, but I imagine there's vast differences in it. Do you have to be an electrician? If it's under warranty, can carpool do work under warranty, or do they have to go back to the dealer?
Well, ideally, you wouldn't want them to do the warranty work. You'd want that to go to the dealer. So that's the importance of the warranty. And I would suggest that if we had electric vehicles, we didn't have them working on the electric component unless we had someone trained in that, because they can be highly dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. There's a lot of wolves there.
So can carpool maintain them, or are we going to have to have a?
They can change the tires and change the brakes, yes. That's all. That's the only thing they need. So, Dan Shaw.
There, I try to keep it mute because I talk to myself and you don't need to hear me do that. But thank
Always
you.
heard
Brian.
that before.
I have a bunch of number questions, but I guess the biggest one I have is didn't have the email that you sent out this morning, so I have the one that came in the packet. You have one page is the make ready, and then you have the financial summary with the costs. And I think they're a little different than what you sent out this morning because they aren't matching up to the discussions that's been going on for numbers. I had a net cost at the DPW garage of $10,114, and I think you're down to $8,000 on that.
Yes, there's 2,000 off that one and 4,000 off the other, Dan. It's 6,000 altogether. It's just a difference in the incentive.
Okay, so with that question, the make ready sheet of what's got to be done for these, that's not anything to do with the costs on this other page, is it?
I guess I'd have to understand your question. Matt, do you know what he's referring to?
You have. It says, basically you make it ready for the charging stations to be installed. And it sounds like the costs you have are for the charging stations and the installation of them, but not the make ready costs. Is that correct? That's all I'm.
The estimate is both the make ready too, Dan.
It's both.
The make ready is in there on both of them. Electrical make ready, and there's an estimate. One of them make ready is 8,463. The other estimate on make ready is 40,917.
Yeah, to understand the Make Ready program is the cost that National Grid is picking up to bring the power that's required from the utility to the stations. So that's the 90-10 that's referenced in the quote. I think that you're talking about, Supervisor Shaw.
Okay, that was one question I had, and the other one was in the 5-year operating costs. Is it broke out in any sheet on what that is, so that you kind of have an idea of in 5 years what the 5-year operating cost would be if you had to renew it? I mean, are we talking a big number there or small number?
Well, they gave you the 5-year total was around, $6,000 if I remember.
Okay, I mean, I don't
Or
have that.
6,000 a year.
On none of my paper, I don't have that. The next question is, have you contacted any companies that have car fleets and asked them if they have gone to electric, and if not, why they're afraid of doing it? I mean, do we have anybody to talk to on our experience on this matter? Because it's all new to us.
I've only read the different fleet magazines that people have gone there. In fact, there was, I think it's Indianapolis, that they went to all Teslas on the police force. And there's trucking concerns and van delivery services that are going all electric. One city had even, their taxis had gone electric. So it's being done in a lot of places, not a lot right by us. And we have a few more incentives because of the opportunity zone. So that's kind of where I'm at. I can just see what I see is the savings to our carpool, so that we don't have to increase the cost of carpool, because as you increase the cost of carpool, you have to increase the cost to every department there is that uses it. So my idea is if we integrate these slowly, we can keep those costs consistent. Do I know that for a fact? No, because I don't know what going forward after that 5 years is. Jay Skelly.
I'm not done yet, Brian. I had a few more questions. One is, does the sheriff's department, can they use electric cars in their car fleet?
They can, it's according to whether they want to or not. DSS is more than willing. The sheriff, he was a little more reserved. They probably like to make noise when they arrive.
How many cars are in DSS?
They have 12 designated cars, and they use the pool besides.
And how many, is it DSS or some other department that leaves their cars at the highway barns that wouldn't have access to the charging stations?
Those wouldn't be I don't believe those would be the designated cars, and if they were, we should be looking at putting them there.
Putting charging stations out there too?
That's what we should be doing if that's the case, because that would be far cheaper than having the liability of gasoline there when nothing else is gasoline and it's all diesel. Why would we even have a gas tank?
Well, you'd still have the gas tank for the DPW. I mean,
Why?
Well, because they use it in their foreman trucks. They use it in everything.
They wouldn't have to. There's a way to just burn diesel fuel. You could just get a gallon of gas or a 5-gallon can if you had a chainsaw.
I didn't say that. They're trucks. They're driving trucks of gas trucks.
No, that's my point, Dan. We can go away from that and lose all that expense.
I understand what you're saying long-term. Now you're talking long-term. I'm just trying.
I'm talking long-term on everything I'm talking.
Integrating into this, what it would take to integrate this. I'm not opposed to electric cars. And if we can prove that it's going to save us money in the long run, see, I have no idea what's an electric car cost. Is it more than a combustion engine car? And if so, what's the time frame to recoup the cost? I have no idea any of these, so I'm just asking questions.
Okay, so if you want to go there, what I'm looking at is a car similar to what I drive is about $29,000, and there's a $5,000 rebate if we don't drag our feet. That would be $24,000. And then in DSS, that pays 3/4, our total cost would be $6,000. It's probably even going to be less than that. I'm being conservative. So if you have $6,000 in a car, and every time you put some of them into the car pool, as they graduate out in 3 years, you've decreased your total cost into the pool. But we were doing that already. It's just this is a bigger opportunity to have more of an effect on the downward cost to carpool.
What it was the cost for a combustion engine to go into DSS? What did we pay?
Right in that same area, 6 to 8. And I think I'm somewhere between 5 and 6, but it's according to what they bought. They bought Equinoxes, I think, in 17.
A lot of numbers. Thank you, Ed.
That's my job, Dan. Very good. Is there, Jay Skelly? Sorry, Jay.
Excuse me. I think the question is, do we believe that sometime in the next 5 years, whether we're looking to save the environment, whether we're looking at kickbacks from the state and federal to make it economically viable, or whether we look at mandates that the state are going to tell us, are we going to be running electric cars as part of some portion of our fleet? If we are, we've got to have charging stations. And if this is the cheapest way, unless we get to an incentive where they pay for everything, we probably, if the board believes we're going to have some portion that'll be electric cars here in the near future, we ought to be doing this, I guess. My only question to Matt is, one of our big expenses is laying the power out through to those charging stations. Are we going to be laying enough power out through there so that all of a sudden, if we're running 20 cars in the fleet, that you can expand on the charging stations down the road, 5 to 10 years? Or are you going to have to redig the whole pavement up again?
We already have a conduit that runs across the parking lot that was put in for future needs. So we'll be going through there. In that estimate, we were kind of estimating that we'd be putting a transformer out there, so we would be able to expand it. I guess the biggest question is, in the future, it goes back to the parking lot. Is that the best place for them, or is it out in front of the DPW garage? That's what we can't answer right now. I think that's the more of the unknown right now, is what our parking lot looks like and what the parking looks like in the future. Right now, it's a parking neutral, like we're not really giving up spaces or adding spaces, but that could change, And I guess that comes down to the operation. Do we want all the electric stuff out by the road? You know, is that where that DSS carpool lives? Would it be easier to do that than it would be to put it out back? I guess those are the small questions that we would probably discuss.
And I think to go on to that is 5 years out, DC fast charging might be the thing that everybody's doing because it's so much quicker, and it might even be cheaper. I don't know the answer to that. But that's further down the line. That's the next step they're taking that they're trying to pay for. So I guess I don't want to try to go too far out in front because 5 years from now, maybe like Bob Hankey said, maybe they got hydrogen and they're not even bothering with electric anymore. I don't know the answer to that. James Griffith.
Brian, in these estimates, is there future build-out expenses for additional power usage?
No, not that I know of. I think we're good. I think we have enough power coming in according to Matt. It's where it has to be in the building to use it. Isn't that right, Matt, for what we're looking at?
Yeah, that is. I mean, if you're talking very futuristic of all your carpool cars, National Grid's gonna have to make some changes with their grid, you know, in the area. But that's not our problem, you know.
And at that point, they're funding that at the moment, if that's the case. So that won't be our problem, or shouldn't be. Matt Hicks.
Did I hear that originally with these quotes, we're looking at $30,000, but now because of the opportunity zone issue?
It was 36 originally.
Oh, it's 36, not a 30?
Yes.
Okay. Question number 2, where does this money come from?
I would take it out of contingency or it's general fund to make it happen.
Okay. And number 3, if you put these charging stations in, and this may be towards Matt, there is a grand scheme plan at some point to do something with this whole area out here. Would we be pitching ourselves by putting in the charging stations and then 3 years from now design a new highway garage and go, well, now we got to work around the charging stations where we put them in?
I don't think it would ever work around the charging stations. Those charging stations now, they're at an endpoint. You can move them, obviously the wiring, but in a project that big, this would be probably a very small part of it.
Okay. And it's a very small part of this one. That was just the most, not just convenient, but the most economical because they actually have to drill a hole through the wall is all they have to do to put in their line, which it doesn't get any easier than that. So that's kind of why they picked that location. Sue Clary.
I agree wholeheartedly with what Jay said. Looking ahead and what we learned at the last meeting regarding the stacked rebate type that you're going towards, which would be maybe charging stations, carpool, and then maybe even like at the highway barns, as we're talking about the highway barns, would they talk about going green heating systems, charging stations at the highway barns to actually add points to what we're trying to achieve and save money longer term by starting here. This is the starting point, and then looking at the total plan for the county. Would this be like a capital plan for going green as new build comes out? Is it,
If you want Dana have to vote for this, you can't label it going green.
All right, sorry. I like that. I like that. So it's Dana and I, at the. I'm okay with going green.
Go ahead, Dana.
Sue, I agreed with the former Greenwich supervisor much more than I agree with you. So. There we go.
I'm okay with that, Dana.
Oh my.
Brian, I think
Yeah, go ahead.
roll now.
Dave.
So I think that this is a good idea to look at and to decide to where we're going from here. But I would suggest that we wrap up some of the other questions here. I mean, I would like to know to make sure that the installing costs are where they think it is, get the contractor in that's gonna do that. Take a look at it, verify they're in the right ballpark and cost. Make sure there's no other things they see that need to be dealt with in terms of laying the lines and feeding power out.
I think that was done, wasn't it, Matt, in that walkthrough, wasn't those are the people that would be doing it, right?
No, we would be having our contractor that we do our electrical work in the building, probably be doing that part of it. They'd be hired by ChargePoint, but that goes back to, this is an estimate, not a quote, you know. I guess if there's anything, you know, you're looking to go forward with, that may not be a hard number, the make ready. That's not a hard number now, that is an estimate. So I don't know how you want to go forward with that, but we would definitely need, either he would have to come back, like whether they're contractors or whether they hire our contractor for us, they would have to firm up that make ready number. That is a budgetary estimate.
So
The rest of the stuff in this quote is good because it's items and it's stuff that they price out and have costs. But the make ready part is just, it is an estimate.
But the percentages still apply. The 90-10 still apply, I think, right, Matt?
Sure.
Yeah.
90-10 still applies, but it could be 10,000 more, 10,000 less, you know, that make ready number.
So shouldn't we firm those up? And I think there's a question James asked about, would this be able to future? Shouldn't we find out the answer to that? If there's anything else that we'd have to think about to do now that would prevent other work in the future? And
I think that's
between the contractor.
That part I think they did. That was the part we talked about because he called it future proofing, I called it fraud. I remember that part. Look at Chris. Matt, am I right on that?
Say that again, Brian.
That's where we had our discussion where he called it future proofing and I called it fraud.
Yeah.
So he's basically looked at because we talked about, should we put in extra lines? And I think you were the one that said that if we were going any bigger than what they were talking about, we'd probably be talking to Niagara Mohawk or National Grid and figuring it out from there because you really didn't want to put more power to the back of the building. Was that?
Well, we'd run out of space in our mechanical room to put boxes to handle, you know, futuristic. Yeah. But right now, for what you're asking for, we can do. It's just we need hard numbers to know exactly what it is. I believe that this estimate is very close. I believe it's a good estimate, but it is an estimate.
And if it's $10,000 either way, we're talking $1,000 in our cost either way. Is that the way I just heard that?
That's correct, because it's still going to be 90%. So if it was, you know, the make ready went up 10,000 compared to what this estimate is, it's still 90% of that. So it would be a difference of 1,000. I don't think it would hurt to probably reach out to those other two companies that are on state contract and get them to give us a quote. I believe at the cost we're at now, we're pretty close to not having to go to public bid if we're under a certain number. And if they're on state contract, I guess we don't anyways. That would be more, you know, that's something you guys wanted to do. But if we got three quotes, competition doesn't hurt.
That's for sure. John Roselle?
Something to think about in the future, especially for the 5 towns that power line's coming down through. And that also goes through Fort Edward. Maybe we can work some sort of a deal for that power line that's coming down through Canada. Put some plug-in stations in.
There you go.
They won't be, they've already told us they're not putting junctions in so we can tap on the power.
We've tried everything with that. Dana Hogan.
Hey, Matt Jones, what, the company we're describing right now is Choice Point. What were the other two on state contract?
Oh, you had to add, I don't remember, Dana.
Okay.
The distributor, so you know how it works. ChargePoint is the company that makes the actual stations and the software. Plug-in stations online is a distributor that's on state contract. They're the ones that gave us a quote. So we'll have to look at it from there. There may be other distributors too, but that is the local one to here that's on state contract.
All right, thank you.
Max?
If we put a Wi-Fi hotspot on top of the charging stations, would that be broadband infrastructure?
Yes, it could be.
There's 30 grand right there. Just saying, everybody into the public.
Yeah, that's where I want
When
to
you
go.
mention the word fraud, I think.
That's future proofing. I was told that. So anyway, my question is here, how do we want to go forward? Do we want to air this in a different committee? Do we just want Matt to go back and go to these 3 vendors and get quotes and find out if there's anything that's significantly different and nail that number down? Yeah, and do we want to go through Matt from here and have him bring that back to government ops? Is that how we want to proceed? That's what I need to know now. Dave O'Brien.
Brian, I would suggest, I would like to have Matt go out and look at these other 3 vendors and see if there's any differences. I did hear someone say they were looking at a charging station, I forget who it was, that said that some of the costs were included that we're being charged for. I don't know if it makes much difference, but it could be, and look at it. I also would like to have him come back, get the engineer, I think Brownell, to take a look at this to make sure we're right on target with the estimates, so we don't have any surprises. I would like to see if we can get that done. I don't know, Matt, could you do it in a week and a half?
I can try my hardest. I do have the information on the other 3. I just don't have it in front of me. I could forward that along. The other, actually the other 2 that are on state contract. But
And Matt, could you and Chris Belden have a discussion on the things that they put out to bid? Because we could do that through the quote process also, just to see if there's a significant difference there, because that may make us decide that we do want to bid it. But there's a possibility quotes get us there too.
I think we can come up with a scope of work pretty easy, because actually, they already gave us, Plug-in gave us one. So that is, that is the scope of work. So if we want to go to public bid, then it'll be a little bit different, but I don't know as if we need to right now.
I can share, Warren County was kind enough to share their bid specs and their bid tab sheet and so on. I can share that. I was just looking, there's the three vendors of the stations, but for instance, ChargePoint has about 6 pages of reseller distributors. So there might be some opportunities to, get some of these costs included that plugin did not provide. So I can certainly be in touch with Matt and Melissa or whomever, make sure you guys have enough information to make a educated decision.
Sure.
That sounds good, because the people that know the most about this are the ones that are working on it. If we possibly can, hell no lot.
So Brian, just a reminder, if you're not going to go off state contract, because the base cost of these things are 23,000, you do have to go out the public bid over 20,000. So, but I think Chris's recommendation was why not bid them out, because Warren County actually did better than state contract. So I think that you could put these things out to public bid and get an estimate for the electrical. And while that's going on, it gives the board time to discuss the logistics and the planning. So while those 2 bids are being done for you, the board has time to discuss their next steps and the future plan. Like you were talking about 6, 3, and 3 on the DSS cars. And if they've got 12 cars that you keep for 3 years, if you did a 4, 4, 4, you could build a flat cost into your budget and not have any spikes while you're testing out the program. So just a couple of things I wanted to throw out real quick.
Yeah, and I think the reason I went 6, 3, and 3, Al, is because there's 3 already that should have come back to the pool that haven't. So, but of course the cars haven't been driven, so that isn't a problem. But there's 3 more that are going to come back this year, and to me, it's hard to warrant a 12-station build out for 4 cars. At least 6, you're halfway there. So, but I think I like the way you think. But we may even want to relook at what DSS has for designated cars and the amount they use carpool, because maybe that should be right-sized also. So maybe they don't need to use carpools if it's a cheaper way to get the cars to carpool. There's a lot bigger picture to that.
Yeah, because I didn't want to build another spike into the budget 3 years from now where you got to replace those 6.
Right. No, and I'm with you on that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
If At least it's 75% of the spike. Dave?
Matt, what do you think? Can you accomplish that in a week and a half or something?
Depends. I'm just looking, depends. If we have to go to formal public bid, it's gonna take a little longer. You can expect at least a month, it'd be the next month at the earliest. It depends on public works or if it's non-public works, if it falls into what category, because that's the limit. What Al just quoted at 20,000 is non-public works. 35,000 is the limit for a formal public bid for public work stuff. So I don't know where that falls in yet. I'll talk to Roger about it. I'm sure he can weigh in when he looks at it and let me know.
I think it'd be a stretch.
What's that?
I think it'd be a stretch to call this public works.
Could be. I don't.
Carpool is under public works here, Al. That's the only reason why we're only here because of carpool. So I don't know that it's a stretch because that's where carpool lives here.
No, Brian, he's talking about a GML definition of public works. Not
not our definition. Okay, I get it.
That's right.
It's very specific on what public works is.
Correct.
So I believe once Matt and Chris talk, they will figure out which way is better because they'll know what can be gotten out of a bid compared to out of a quote. They may see similarities or something that says, no, I have to bid this, or something that says, no, the bid won't save us anything. So I think that discussion will probably help us out and we'll move that to government ops if that's where we want to go. Max?
Didn't we just hear that Warren County's bid came under state contract? So let's bid.
No. Well, you didn't. What Matt Jones said is it comes under state contract, so you get less incentive. So you get less incentive, and your cost is the same. So that's what the concern was. That's why I want them to talk to see if that's the case.
But aren't we $6,000 ahead because being an opportunity zone, we've already
so we have more incentive already.
And that you have. So we have some incentive, but if it comes down to 10%, it's only $1,000 for the whole thing. It's sort of a long process to go through.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the length of process because I don't want to lose $30,000 on buying cars. That's all.
The other thing is, goes back to that quote bid thing, Matt. We can get 3 quotes and still get the competition. The bid is just a legal name, whether we bid or quote. One way or another, we can get what we want. We can get the best possible price.
Okay. So motion to move this forward to government ops and let that all take place. Sue Cleary and Dana Hogan. Is there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Dana?
The Health and Human Services.
That doesn't usually stop you. Okay, it's approved.
As long as we don't buy any cars in Hebron.
We're gonna have charging stations in Hebron. Everybody's gonna come to Hebron to charge down at R.S. Taylor.
Maybe get Village Store to open up again and put them there.
So now we have other business. Is there anything else to come? Al Nolet, you're gonna give us the good news.
No, I'm glad everybody's sitting down because I got to deliver the rates to you.
Is that bad?
So we knew the market was going to fluctuate. We just didn't know how much. So I'm going to do something that you're not used to. I'm going to deliver good news. The bond anticipation note, 0.2789.
Wow.
Serial bond, 1.338.
Oh, you owe me lunch, don't you?
I'll pay. Hell, I'll buy you dinner at that rate.
Wow. I think we did the right thing. What do you think?
And I'll tell you, it's too bad that we weren't building barns tomorrow because that is some cheap money right now.
That's excellent news, Al. I really appreciate it, and glad we were able to work together to make that happen because I remember when I first went to you, you said, but we can ban it for 2 more years. I go, no! Oh. Yeah, I didn't even see it that low.
What was the
So,
ban again? BAN again? 0.2 or 2 point?
0.2789.
Wow.
Yeah.
Free money.
Excellent news.
Well,
Is there any
watch the bond market over the next week, because we may have hit the sweet spot.
Well, doesn't get much sweeter than that, even if it gets better. We can't feel bad at that.
Nope.
Is there any other business to come before finance? Anything we've forgotten? Day and a half.
Ryan, I have one question to go back to the rooftop units at the Law Center. Do these units need to have like MRF filters and things like that for COVID? Could that be part of a COVID expense?
Yeah, the filters, they do, they come with them, they're standard now. That's, MERV 13 would be standard on the new equipment.
So can we count the whole project?
Sure.
No, I think we could.
Well,
We count last year's project too. There's $1 million.
Well, James can attest to this. The problem with indoor shopping was a lot of the air handling. Schools, it was the air handling question. So maybe this could be an air handling issue. And for COVID.
If that's the case, we should get on Burgoyne right away.
I completely agree.
I agree.
Yeah,
No, I think you could claim it. I really
I
do.
concur with Dana, yeah.
I think Dana's brought up a great point. That's why these meetings and dialogue are important. We've been away from that too long, and I can't wait till this building opens up again. We can see each other and have a regular conversation. But good point, Dana, and I think that is an opportunity. I'm glad you brought it up.
Well, in the future, it's a big problem. If it's airborne illness and air handlers, I think it would be 100% eligible.
Well, especially the way the strings are probably tied to this money, it really might be. So, no, I'll drink to that as soon as we adjourn.
So moved.
Anybody else? We're adjourned, everyone. Thanks so much. Great conversation.